My twin sister had a crush on the school bully, and didn't dare to chase her, so I swapped identities with her, and I retired after getting someone. One day after school, I met the school bully. I was about to pretend that I didn't know, and the next second he was dragged into the narrow utility room to kiss, and I pushed him again, and again. Brother-in-law, you recognize the wrong person. But he laughed indifferently. Wouldn't it be more fun to admit your mistake? My name is Sigrid May, and my twin sister is Teresa May. After the winter break, my sister and I swapped identities. Not for anything else, just because Teresa May, the love brain, had a crush on the school bully Joyce Bob, and she herself was afraid to go to a big society, so I had to help her on. I cut my sister's haircut and got my well-looking bangs. I threw all the clothes from the front line of the trend to my sister, put on a full set of school uniforms, and came to their class. When I walked in, no one called me Sister Sigrid, and I wasn't used to it. At this moment, a handsome and thin boy blocked my view. Teresa May. This person is Dean Francis, and my sister's tablemate last semester. I was thinking about whether to be polite, but he said to me, I don't want to continue to share a table with you this semester, so you can find another classmate to sit with you. After that, a girl came out from behind him, smiled at me, and said, Sorry Teresa May, Dean Francis and I have made an appointment to be at the same table this semester during the winter break. But I don't want to worry too much. Oh, whatever you want, you don't need to inform me. Dean Francis' eyes paused, as if he was a little puzzled by my attitude. I ignored him. He wasn't my target. I fixed my eyes on Joyce Bob in the last row, and walked straight towards him. He sat in the last row. The black and white school uniform was worn by him very well, and a pair of very bewitching Danfeng eyes were lowered, and there was a kind of indifference, that everything around him seemed to have nothing to do with him. I walked up to him, and whispered, Joyce Bob, can I sit next to you? The boys next to him looked up at me in unison. The eyes were full of shock. I'm sorry, classmate, but we Joyce Bob like to sit alone. And aren't you Sigrid May's sister? I interrupted softly. It's the first day of school, and I'm free to sit in my favorite seat, so I want to sit here, okay? Joyce Bob leaned back, her thin lips curled. Sit with me. Don't you know that your sister Sigrid May counts me as an enemy? Of course I do, because I'm Sigrid May. But now all I can say is, but my sister is my sister, I am me, we are two different people, there is no need to be so bitter. His eyes changed slightly, and he looked at me. I looked back at him, with my big eyes widening more sincerely. Is that okay? At this point, Dean Francis' new tablemate walked to the trash can in the back corner with his things, ostensibly to throw out the trash. Actually, I deliberately came to see the excitement. He smiled mockingly as he passed me. Joyce Bob said, Sit down. Wait until I'm settled. He continued, You can be my tablemate, but only if you let Sigrid May know about it. I could already guess what he was thinking. He must have thought that I knew he was at the same table as my sister, and that this act could make me angry. But unfortunately, I'm Sigrid May. I couldn't think of it. I snickered in my heart. Okay, I'll tell her. The reason why I agreed to swap with my sister was not just because my sister said that she would divide half of the money she had saved for the new year. Also, I'm a bit of a bad taste. Joyce Bob and I were rivals, and it would be very rewarding to be able to play with him. Anyway, my sister doesn't mind. Her purpose was just for me to help her get Joyce Bob. At this time, several of Joyce Bob's brothers began to gossip, and they gave me a thumbs up. It's a very wise choice to kill your relatives and go to Joyce Bob. I have black lines all over my head. I felt a little angry, and I told myself I had to hold back. You don't know, your sister is so fierce. I'm afraid just by looking at her eyes. You're different. You speak softly. Has not a shrew at all. I couldn't bear it. Say again. But then Joyce Bob looked at me, and I realized that I might not be right, so I quickly changed my words. I'll cry if you say it again. I lowered my head. My sister is actually pretty good. Don't talk about it so exaggerated. Joyce Bob hooked her lips. Where's the good? Tell me about it. Not only does she have good grades, but she is also cheerful and generous. Cheerful and generous, he said with a playful laugh, obviously disbelieving. Every time she sees my white eyes roll to the sky. Dare you call this cheerful and generous? I was speechless for half a second. Why do you remember for so long with a white eye? Not just one, 19. This person really holds a grudge, and his white eyes can be calculated so clearly. Then let's not talk about anything else. Just by her appearance, she is very beautiful. Joyce Bob glanced at me. What's the difference between you and boasting about yourself? I pursed my lips shyly. Then I'm telling the truth. Classes are now on. It's incredibly simple. My sister's grades in cultural classes are not very good, and I was second in my grade, and first in my grade was Joyce Bob. Originally, when I was in junior high school, I was always the first in my grade, but when I went to high school, he always pressed me, which made me very unhappy. During class, the math teacher asked someone to come to the podium to write questions, and his squinting eyes scanned the audience. Joyce Bob, Theresa May, you two come up and write these 2 questions. Joyce Bob looked sleepy. I laughed gloatingly. The teacher told you to go up and write the question. He looked at me. Didn't I call you to? Oh yes, I'm Theresa May, not Sigrid May. Fortunately, I was in a hurry. I know. I was afraid that you didn't hear the special reminder of you, and you will have to help me later. The math teacher was on stage. What are you two still messing with? Hurry up. Actually, this question is very simple for me, but my sister's grades are not good, especially in math. Before the previous exchange, she asked me worriedly, what if the teacher in your class asks me to answer a question, then I won't be exposed? I said to her, no, my teacher doesn't think it's interesting to call me because I can never make a mistake. But what if I was called up by her teacher? Right now, for example, I really want to show my hand. But in order not to be exposed, I secretly pulled Joyce Bob's school uniform jacket and made a help with his lips. When he looked at it, Joyce Bob ignored me, clutching the chalk and writing as fast as she could. Okay, I've decided to make this up a little bit of nonsense. By this time, Joyce Bob had finished writing, and he threw the chalk back into the box. As he passed me, I heard him whisper, can't you copy it? The math teacher looked at what I wrote and frowned. It looked like I had drawn a lump of poop on it, and he sighed deeply. After seeing what Joyce Bob wrote, only then did he show a look of relief and make a big hook. In the end, I did not forget to educate me and said, Theresa May, you have to be at the same table with you to ask for advice. You won't be bold enough to ask. Joyce Bob didn't look like anything. At the end of the lesson, I took the question and asked him, Joyce Bob, can you tell me about it? Didn't the teacher already talk about it just now? But I still don't understand. You're not at the same table as me. We should help each other, shouldn't we? He lifted his eyelids and looked at me, and said, you asked your sister to come and teach you. Isn't she the second in the grade? Your uncle, if you don't eat soft, you have to eat hard. If it were the real me, how could I beg him like this? But then, my sister came looking for me. She called her name by the window, Theresa May, come out for a moment. The expression is very cold, and the voice is also very loud. That's right, I taught her to speak like that, because that's my Sigrid May style. As soon as I came out, she pulled me to the railing, and couldn't wait to show a shy expression. How's it going? Did you talk to Joyce Bob? Not only did I talk, but I also made him a table-mate, and I wanted to beat him up several times. My sister hugged me. Then you have to hold back for the sake of my sister's happiness. That's when someone called me by name, Sigrid May. Hey, I subconsciously responded, and when I turned my head and saw that the person was Joyce Bob, I changed my words again and again. Hey, sister, I'll call you at the same table. It's so dangerous, it's almost exposed. My sister put on a straight face and pretended to be the usual attitude towards him. What do you want me to do? It's nothing. Your sister is very interesting. She has to be at the same table with me. Oh, so what? I advise you to be nice to my sister, don't bully her, and I won't let you go if you make her cry. My sister is playing me. Joyce Bob, I bullied her. Are you sure? I hurriedly pushed my sister. Sister, go back first, be angry and make money, and be angry and make money. It's really, I persuade myself. So my sister turned around and left with the steps that I had taught her to disown her 6 relatives. Joyce Bob, don't worry about my sister. My sister's personality is like that. I know you won't bully me. I'm saying things against my will. He laughed. The eyebrows and eyes were brighter than ever, and the thin lips were filled with a naughty smile. Also, it's more interesting to bully your sister. My fists hardened. Back to the classroom. Dean Francis stopped me. Theresa May, is there something wrong? I smiled softly and softly. Why do you have to run to the table with that man? He was thin, and his eyes under his glasses were very gentle, and there was a faint unhappiness in it. What you do with me, it's my freedom. He lifted his glasses. It's because you're not happy that I'm sitting with Alice Anna, right? I don't know what kind of character this person was before my sister, but she told me that Dean Francis was just her tablemate, and now it doesn't seem that simple. Really, don't think too much about it, it's your business who you sit at the table with. You're doing it for yourself. Dean Francis had a look in his eyes that was similar to, I knew you were jealous, and deliberately hard-mouthed, and then turned away. He seemed to have the delusion that I was deliberately angry with Joyce Bob when I was at the same table. I really want to taunt him so that he can recognize himself. It's a pity that my sister's character is gentle, and I won't act rashly until I have to. Turn back to your seat. But I saw Joyce Bob lazily lifting his eyelids to look at me, as if watching a play. I sat back in my seat, thinking about what to do next. Joyce Bob turned sideways, one leg bent and the other crossed to my chair. What did you say you wouldn't do? Why are you asking this? Do you want to teach me? Well, teach you. Yo, this person has changed sex. I quickly flipped to the problem and handed him the exercise book, and he looked at it, with half-curled eyes, and really explained to me in detail the method of the problem, which was more ingenious than the solution of the teacher. At the end he asked me, do you understand? Got it, got it. I quickly took this opportunity to get closer to him. You're too good at the same table. He smirked. Well, you mean I'm better than Sigrid May. This person will die if he doesn't fight with me, right? When I got home, I asked my sister, is that Dean Francis really just a table mate with you? And he looks at my attitude as if he thinks I like him? My sister frowned when she heard this name. Just because he was at the same table as him, the people in the class put us into CPs, and often coaxed him to say that I liked him. Maybe he really thought I liked him. No wonder he looks like he's pinching me. Leave him alone. How is Joyce Bob's attitude towards you? Is there any hope? Hopefully, he's willing to teach me how to do the problem now. The next step may be to hold hands, and the next step may be to kiss the mouth. I said, turning my head, and finding Theresa May smiling at her aunt. Why are you smiling like that? I'm excited. And sure enough, as soon as my sister makes a move, there is no one who can't take it. That's right, I said, patting her on the shoulder. And then the kiss will be on your toe. And my sister will have to help you get here. Ha ha ha. I had a physical education class one afternoon. I sat cross-legged on the side of the basketball court and watched a group of boys play basketball, with the focus on Joyce Bob. Of course, he has black short sleeves, blue school uniform pants, long legs and broad shoulders, and a quick figure. Dean Francis' new tablemate, Alice Anna, was inexplicably hostile to me. During the intermission, before I could step forward, several girls rushed over to bring him water. I was forced to the periphery. Then Joyce Bob's hand passed through everyone and reached out to me. Give me water. I handed him the water. He unscrewed it and drank it, pulled out a beautiful line around his neck, and the Adam's apple fell together, and then threw it back to me after drinking. Help me hold it. I went back to where I was. Alice Anna and her little sister sat 2 or 3 meters away from me, and the sound of chewing the root of their tongue came to my ears. Intentionally or unintentionally, some people really can't help themselves. Dean Francis can't catch Joyce Bob. I'm not my sister, and Joyce Bob doesn't notice me when she's playing basketball. So she turns her head and looks at the three of them funny. Who the do you mean? The girl's expression suddenly cringed. People are like this. As soon as people face her, the more cowardly she becomes. You don't know how to be quiet in front of people. You don't know what it means to be humiliated if I scold you. Right. Dean Francis spoke up at the table. She didn't name her. Why are you scolding her for no reason? It's not as simple as scolding by name. But you still want to name me. She was speechless. Of course, if you want to be strong, you can also be positive. Don't get together day by day and talk about gossip that is as stinky and long as a foot trap like the old woman at the entrance of the village, which is very cheap. Don't deceive people too much. She rose to her feet and ran towards Dean Francis, not knowing what to say to him. And Dean Francis frowned as she walked over to me. Theresa May, what's going on? Alice Anna found a backer. She scolded me and my sisters for no reason. Dean Francis couldn't help but say to me, apologize to Alice Anna. You don't want to be innocent about the two of us. Apologize. Joyce Bob's voice sounded behind me. I turned around, and he walked over to me. What's wrong? Alice Anna pointed at me. Theresa May, did I ask you? Joyce Bob glanced at her coldly, looked at me and said, you say. My eyes turned red right away. Joyce Bob, they said I hooked up with you, if I couldn't hook up with Dean Francis. But I've never liked Dean Francis. Didn't this pour sewage on me? So I said 2 words to them. It's pitiful. Right, I'll pretend to. Dean Francis looked as if he had been drenched in a basin of water, and his face was extremely dark. I quickly woke him up completely. Dean Francis, I don't know if you have watched too many idol dramas. You have to substitute yourself as the male protagonist, who is fought over by 2 girls. I like a good body. You are really not my cup of tea, when you are thin like that. Joyce Bob, can't understand people. She doesn't like you. Don't play so much. It's annoying. I've been upsetting you for a long time. Joyce Bob's good brother Jackson said angrily. I'm going to you every day, and I'll smoke you next time you talk to Theresa May. Believe it or not, Dean Francis didn't speak. He was only crazy about me, but he couldn't shout at Joyce Bob. I guess I can't hang it on my face. He didn't care about Alice Anna anymore, turned around and left. At this time, Joyce Bob said lightly to Alice Anna, you, apologize to my tablemates. No one gave Alice Anna a head, so she bit her lip, said, I'm sorry, to me angrily, and walked away. Jackson winked at me. I think Joyce Bob is in good shape. Do you want to think about it? Your abs, pecs and so on. Joyce Bob kicked him. Go up to the side. Why did you help me out? There's no reason. You're my tablemate, and if you can't get along with you, you can't get along with me. Maybe it's hot, and my ears are a little hot. With a dry mouth, I unscrewed the mineral water in my hand, took a few sips, put it down, and suddenly met Joyce Bob's meaningless gaze, and I was surprised. What are you doing? This is the bottle I just drank. Right. What? I forgot about it for a moment. I'm kissing him indirectly. As he spoke, he took the bottle of mineral water from my hand again, and I quickly stopped it. Don't drink this bottle. I'll buy you a new one. But when I came back, the bottle was empty. Joyce Bob said lightly, I'm so thirsty. Not so particular. Evening after school, the head teacher suddenly called me to the office. It was my sister, who didn't do well in the last big exam, and the head teacher worked hard to do ideological work for me, so that I wouldn't ask myself more about the same table, and I nodded again and again. By the time I came out of the office, Joyce Bob was gone. I still want to be close to him on the way home. I rode my bike out of school, and as I turned the corner, I caught a faint glimpse of a familiar figure flashing behind me. Before I could take a closer look, at the intersection ahead, 2 young people burst out of the air, slowly and leisurely in front of me. He whistled at me. You, this isn't a top student beauty in no 1 middle school. It's so pure. Sister, call brother to listen. I will give you my life. I didn't speak. This kind of person, idle young people generally ignore him, and walk away with his own amusement. And the more you ignore him, the more energetic he becomes. Do you want to add a weshet? Add a weshet. A beauty. The beauty is quite dragged. The school bully just has a personality. Don't speak. The green-haired young man suddenly sped up, and jumped in front of me, and suddenly blocked my way, and I almost fell because of the sudden breaking of the bicycle wheel slippage. Are you sick? I can't stand it anymore as a black belt in Taekwondo. It's not okay if I don't let you see how powerful my sister is. But I haven't done it yet. In the next second, only a few clangs were heard, and the green hat and the car were kicked to the ground. It's Joyce Bob. What the do you mean? The green hairy man stood up from the ground. Good students don't study hard to learn what heroes save beauty. Joyce Bob dropped the bike and knocked the 2 down in 2 strikes. Swift and ruthless. Brother, don't fight. Don't fight. We're wrong. Fuck off. Joyce Bob ignored them, and came over to me and asked, how are you? It's so scary. These two people. I'm so scared. I grabbed his arm, scared. It's good that you came in time. Otherwise I really don't know what to do. Don't rush to thank me. Look at your bicycle tires. I looked down. My bike's rear tire was flat, so it's no wonder I struggled to speed up just now. I quickly pushed the car to a nearby repair shop. The owner of the repair shop said that he wanted to change the inner tube, and it might take a long time. I sighed. I turned around and found that Joyce Bob hadn't left. He was still on the side of the road, sitting on his bicycle with his long legs propped up. I don't know if it's waiting for me, so I trotted over. Joyce Bob. The master said that he couldn't fix it for a while. Can you give me a ride? Come up. Hold on. I got into the back seat of his bike. Joyce Bob rides fast. I had to hold his waist, the tip of my nose lingering with the crisp smell of his school uniform top. I'm very happy with the progress. On Friday, students walked out of the classroom one after another. I pretended to grab the workbook and ask Joyce Bob questions. When he had finished, his dark eyelashes lowered and looked at me, quiet, faint. Sensing his gaze, I pretended to be shy. What are you staring at me all the time? If you don't do anything, just see. At this time, school was already over, and there were only a few students left in the classroom. Outside the window, the sunset came in through the front door, and the blackboard in the back row sprinkled a large piece of flowing gold, swaying at his eyebrows. I had a moment of panic. Joyce Bob, tell you, are you chasing me? Heh. I didn't expect him to ask me so directly. Isn't this a duck to the shelf? You, don't ask so bluntly. Okay, then I'll ask another question. Suddenly, he reached out and pulled the stool I was sitting on in front of him. I almost hit his collarbone on the forehead. His two long legs stretched out at either side of me, and the difference in size was especially noticeable at this moment. You brought me breakfast for 2 weeks, stuffed chocolates into my drawer on time after the second period, brought me water next to me every time in gym class, and left me with all sorts of nonsense after school. What do you mean? Now that he's full of progress bars, I took a deep breath and confessed, yes. Then you can see that I like you. Can you be my boyfriend? If he says yes, I'll be out next week. If he refused, I told my sister that I wouldn't do it. After all, it was not good for people to refuse to stalk me. Just as my head was racing, Joyce Bob reprinted on my cheek. Her long, beautiful eyes were full of smiles. Yes, help, my innocence. The first time he made his face red. TSK. I let you be my boyfriend, and didn't let you kiss me. I'm afraid you'll regret it. I won't regret it. As soon as I finished speaking, he lowered his head and kissed me twice on the lips. Then I'll kiss it with confidence. Joyce Bob. No. You see, there are 2 or 3 students in front of you who haven't left. We're not doing well in the classroom, so we need to be more careful in public. Okay, Joyce Bob said, starting to sort through the mess of books and exam papers on the table. Let's go. I breathed a sigh of relief, but the heat on my face didn't subside. I put everything I needed to pack into my school bag, and in the next second, a pair of hands took my school bag and put it on his thin shoulder. I'll help you carry it. He reached out and grabbed me, and his dry and warm palm pressed against me, and I couldn't say it uncomfortable. Damn it, it wouldn't be good if the dean of students saw it later. I struggled gently. It's 6 o'clock. They're all gone. What are you afraid of? So, he led me out of the classroom, carrying my powder blue bag in the front, and his own black bag in the back, and the window reflected the silhouette of us holding hands in school uniforms. It's inexplicably pretty good. But soon, I was led by Joyce Bob into the small utility room by the stairs, and the door was slammed against his knees behind me. Aren't we going home? What are we doing here? Dating. Heh, I'm blinded. Dating in the utility room. And the conditions are a little tough. Why are you in such a hurry? It's okay on the weekend. When I ask you out in the future, will you come out? Of course, I said, turning my head into his line of sight. Yes. He put his arms around me from behind, and the boy's smell came up with me. Don't lie to me. Do you know? Because of the weakness of my heart, I spoke quickly. Okay, I won't lie to you. And he said, it is the puppy that deceives. I could only cry twice in my heart. We all ride bikes to and from school. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, The wind carried the sunset molten gold, and the face was warm and soft. Joyce Bob and I were only 5 minutes on the same road, and after saying goodbye to him, he followed me not far until I was escorted to the entrance of the community. He was wearing a black t-shirt and blue school uniform shorts, and the wind ruffled his hair, revealing those beautiful and sharp Danfeng eyes. He said, "I'll send you home every day." It just so happened that my sister was downstairs. I hurriedly said, "Sigrid May, come and meet your brother-in-law." My sister and I looked at each other and reacted quickly. She gave her eyes in disbelief, her gaze jumping between us. "I don't scream. Theresa May, you traitor, is with him behind my back?" After saying that, she turned around and left. Menacing. Joyce Bob looked down at me. "What about Sigrid May? Leave her alone. I'll educate her tonight, and she will honestly call you brother-in-law in 2 days." He hooked his lips and smiled. "Okay, I'll wait." After saying goodbye to Joyce Bob, I went home with a solemn look. My sister's expression is also very solemn. "Sister, let's change it back next week. You can see it. I chased him, but I must warn you that he kissed me." "You're all kissed." Strange. Why is my sister's expression so excited? "What's wrong with you, sister? Do you mind?" She cleared her throat. "It's okay. It's okay. It's okay if you really like him. It's okay too." "No," I said, pulling out my phone. "Here's his phone number. Remember, you can get along with him in class next week." I sat in the living room in a daze, and the soft touch of his lips couldn't go away. By the time Monday arrived, I had already retired. My sister recut her bangs, and I clamped them. The next day I went to school as usual and went back to my old class. No one seems to have noticed our swap. Xu Guan, the boy at the back table, leaned over and said, "Sister Sigrid, I heard that no. According to reliable information, your sister seems to be with Joyce Bob." Seeing that I was calm, he looked shocked. "You don't care about this. Joyce Bob is your old enemy. If only she liked it." After a month of getting along, I actually unilaterally reconciled with Joyce Bob. On my way to the bathroom, I passed by my sister's classroom. The pace slowed involuntarily, and I looked inside. Consciously or unconsciously, my sister and Jackson were sitting together, and we didn't know what we were talking about. Joyce Bob, on the other hand, didn't know what to do. "Who?" Behind him, the young man's familiar voice suddenly sounded. On the transparent glass window, his silhouette mingles with the sunlight. I pretended to be calm and said, "I'm not looking for anyone. I'm just passing by. Don't you call your brother-in-law to listen?" At this time, the Dean of Education passed by, and when he saw us together, he immediately stared at us with great vigilance. "Two classmates." "This is," Joyce Bob said lightly. "We're talking about learning." The teaching director put on a smiling face. "You two are both materials from Kingbai. You need to communicate more." In the evening, I stayed because I had to be on duty. My sister went home before me. Last week Joyce Bob said that they would send me home in the future, and I guess the two of them are going back together now. I dragged the floor of the hallway, just looking for a quick fix. Suddenly, a shadow slowly moved towards me, looked up along the slender legs, and met the pair of dark and narrow Danfeng eyes. "You were something." By the time I could react, I had been dragged into a small utility room, trapped between his arms. "Give me a kiss." I pressed his chest. Wait, brother-in-law, you recognize the wrong person. "What do you call me, brother-in-law?" "It's me. You can see clearly." I breathed a sigh of relief. Before I could finish speaking, he pinched my chin and kissed me, even more than the last kiss. No matter how much I pushed him, he didn't move, until there was a knock outside the door. Somebody's coming. Somebody's coming." He had only been a short distance away from me, but his posture was still trapping me in his arms. "Is anyone in there?" Joyce Bob whispered in my ear. "What are you afraid of? It's locked." At the door was the voice of our team leader on duty. Strange. Where did this guy Sigrid May? He lost his broom. Soon his footsteps were gone. "Do you hear that? You're mistaken. I'm Sigrid May, not Theresa May." He laughed indifferently. "Wouldn't it be more fun to admit that you were wrong? You're perverted. I can't be metamorphosed. Don't you know best?" He let me push him away, but when I reached the door, he said faintly. Who told me here that day that it was a puppy who lied to people? A buzz in my head. I can't say anything to refute it. As I rode my bike home, I had a lot of thoughts going through my head. I kept thinking about the last words he said. Who toyed with my feelings first? So Joyce Bob means knowing that my sister and I swapped. Or what's the situation? My sister looked at me worriedly. Sister, Joyce Bob seems to know about the exchange I had with you. My sister is also worried. Yes, when I went to the classroom today, he completely ignored me. And as soon as I talked to him, do you know what his first words were? And he said, "You're not her." The phone rang with a text message from Joyce Bob. My heart fluttered, and it took me a while to open it. Sigrid May, are you going to admit it? It's like being discovered suddenly when someone has done something bad, and my heart beats abruptly. Not admitting. What do you think, sister? Actually, I'm not that attached to Joyce Bob. I think you two can be together. I'm okay. Really? Heh. I never expected such an answer. You think you've been together for so long. If you really like Joyce Bob, it's okay to be with him. I found out that I had a crush on him at the time, and now it's already cool. This old six. I thought about the menacing kiss in the utility room again. Heat and shyness creep up to the root of the ear. Do you want to apologize to him? Strange, embarrassing. Before, Sigrid May's identity was still inseparable from him, but now it suddenly became complicated, and he was caught and kissed several times. I wandered around my phone for a long time, and I didn't know what to reply to. The phone jingles and it's a new text message from Joyce Bob. Isn't it very rewarding to play with me for so long? I couldn't sit still. My sister looked very remorseful and kept saying that she knew she shouldn't have asked me to help her chase Joyce Bob. Oh, don't say that, sister. I actually thought I could play him before I agreed. And if it was another boy, I wouldn't agree. But who knew I'd put myself in it? I think Joyce Bob likes you. How could he like me? If I hadn't pretended to be so gentle and well behaved, he probably wouldn't like me. I texted Joyce Bob. Then now that you know, I sincerely apologize to you. Can we write off the matter of me chasing you? He didn't reply to me for a long time. It made me sit on the edge, and waited until the evening to hear back from him. Just 3 words. Impossible. When I went to school the next day, I was looking around, afraid I would run into Joyce Bob somewhere. After all, we don't know exactly what the situation is. After a few days of caution, I was asked, Sister Sigrid, how have you been sneaking around these last few days? I heard that your sister is with Joyce Bob. Is that true? That's your rival. Don't you care? He's not together. Don't let the gossip spread it. My sister isn't with him. Then how did I hear that your sister and he went to the small utility room after school one day? You know, I hurriedly said. Oh, don't worry about it. He doesn't know my sister well, and he and I are, too. The classmate was stunned, and I turned my head, and Joyce Bob himself was walking in my direction at some point. His appearance was so eye-catching, and the girls in the corridor all looked at him, but he passed me without squinting, and did not linger too long. It's as if I don't know. Look at his attitude. I think Joyce Bob must have accepted my offer that day and voluntarily distanced herself from me. However, during the lunch break, my phone vibrates. Joyce Bob texted me. I'm in the empty classroom on the far right on the top floor. You come up to me. What? I have a study problem. No, I want to ask you. Believe him a ghost. After thinking about it, I sighed. And I should believe him. The school building is unusually quiet during the lunch break. The classrooms on the top floor are vacant, and they are usually used as empty classrooms when there are large exams. I pushed the door open, and Joyce Bob was by the door. The curtains near the hallway were drawn tightly, and his figure was half lit and half dark. What topic? As I spoke, Joyce Bob grabbed me by the arm and pulled me into his arms, his chin resting on the top of my hair. I raised my hand to hug it back, nor did I push it. After all, I was the one who was at fault. Aren't you going to ask me questions? No title. Made up. To correct me, I don't know your sister very well, but I know you very well. He hugged my hand and tightened. Don't push me away. Don't forget that you chased me? You said a write-off. A write-off. Is your heart made of stone? But you also know that I chase my sister for me. I don't care. You said the other day that it's a puppy who deceives people. He separated from me a little, lowered his eyes and looked at me. He usually couldn't drag him. Helpless and aggrieved. Is it good for me to be a puppy? Don't you want me? Damn it, when have I ever seen him like this? I've seen his arrogant and ruthless appearance, but I've never seen him look aggrieved, like a big dog with a drooping head. Gan, I'm soft-hearted. Okay, I want you yet, okay. He smiled, putting away his grievances. Then you can kiss me. Heh. Face-changing master, what is this? I kissed him on the cheek. That's it, it's too perfunctory. Isn't that enough? He sat down in a chair next to him, then pulled me into his lap and sat down. I grabbed the hem of his school uniform, and Joyce Bob pinched me on both cheeks and kissed it down. Outside the window, the leaves swayed and rustled in the spring breeze. This classroom is usually under my control, and if we want to discuss learning issues in the future, we will meet here. Okay, but I want to take a lunch break now. Just take a lunch break here, with me. So, every day at noon, after we had each eaten, we met in this empty classroom, each with an exercise book and a paper. It's called, Discussing Learning Issues. We did a 5-year college entrance examination, and a 3-year simulation together, and I asked him directly if there were difficult questions. The brothers in my class thought I was still hostile to Joyce Bob, except for my sister. My sister was more calm than I thought. Don't worry, my sister is here. In case another girl wants to pry you into the wall, I will definitely tell you. My sister smiled shyly. And we don't want to go home together in the future. Joyce Bob will just send you. Then it's not safe for you to go back alone. I've got someone to send me. I'm with Jackson. Jackson, you know. Of course I do. Jackson is a good brother of Joyce Bob, a handsome man with a handsome face, and he also helped scold Dean Francis last time, so I have a good impression of him. And every time I wanted to tease Joyce Bob after class, Jackson would automatically clean up the light bulbs that came to Joyce Bob and chatted with him. And he didn't give me a lot of assists. I sighed. Sister, I only found out today that you are so attentive, and you liked it again so soon. Let's talk about it. When did you two get together? Is he chasing you? My sister mumbled. It's just recently. He must have chased me. I felt something was wrong, but I didn't figure out what was wrong. Forget it. Too lazy to think about it. Approaching the big exams, Joyce Bob and I insisted on studying in the empty classroom every day, and my weak areas of science and overall scores improved. Every time he helped me solve a study question, he asked me to kiss him. Say what? This is the reward he deserves. I couldn't help but complain. Okay, selfless dedication. Why are you so utilitarian? He was justified. I've given myself to you. Isn't it enough? After the results of the joint entrance examination came out, our scores were exactly the same, tied for the first place in the grade. Soon it was time for the 100-day pledge. Joyce Bob and I were both selected to speak as student representatives. Dear leaders, teachers, dear students, when the meeting ended, a girl approached him and stuffed him with love letters, but Joyce Bob refused. I'm sorry, but I have a girlfriend. What? Do you have a girlfriend? The girl's voice was very loud, which alarmed several school leaders walking behind her. The leaders of the school were like a great enemy. It seems that I heard something terrible. After all, it is the critical juncture of the upcoming college entrance examination. Soon after, Joyce Bob was summoned into the office by the Dean of Education, for cross-examination. Unfortunately, I'm here too. It just so happened that the head teacher asked me to help him with his errands. Joyce Bob, you're still young, and your academic performance is so good. I'm sure you don't know what the consequences of falling in love will be for you at this time. Right, teacher. Do you think my learning is being affected? Dean of Students, now it is not affected. But what about after that? These more than 100 days are so critical. You fall in love at the age of 17 or 18. Right. Your emotions are easy to be unstable, and you won't have time to regret it when the time comes. As he spoke, the dean began to hold up examples. Joyce Bob's expression never wavered, but he looked at me from time to time, and I secretly grimaced at him. He smiled. The Dean of Education looked at it and sighed. Well, tell the teacher which class your girlfriend is in, and the teacher wants to talk to the two of you. No, I promise you it won't affect your studies. But I never expected it. The dean found me and called me out alone, thinking he knew about me and Joyce Bob. He said that he was going to hold a class meeting with the theme of early love, and asked me to be the student representative to the top 50 students in the grade. I'm well-deserved. So, I searched the internet for a bunch of speeches about the harm of puppy love, and sat in front of the podium in the conference room to tell them the dangers of puppy love in a serious way. Joyce Bob sat in the front row, staring straight at me. From time to time, he nodded in agreement with my words. People who don't have decades of experience are really easy to hold back. Early love is a bitter fruit wrapped in sugar, a red rose with thorns. Please cherish your youth and refuse early love. Thank you. Well said. Joyce Bob led the applause from the audience. Seeing this, the dean smiled with relief. He gave me a thumbs up. Everyone has to learn from Sigrid May. Concentrate on studying every day, and ignore what is going on outside the window, so that we can make progress in the J. After saying that, he also asked Joyce Bob, Joyce Bob, how is it? How do you feel about listening to it? I would really appreciate it. Joyce Bob laughs. I've learned a lot and I should learn from her. But as everyone was in front, Joyce Bob secretly reached out to me and whispered in my ear, that's a good talk. When no one was looking, we went to the empty classroom on the top floor one after the other. He wrapped his arms around my waist, and wrapped me in his down jacket. Warm. As he spoke, he lowered his head and wanted to kiss me again. I covered his mouth and said seriously, Bold, did you listen to my lecture in vain? His thin lips curled into a nice arc. What did I just hear? I'm sorry. I might have forgotten about a fish. I said, early love is a bitter fruit wrapped in sugar. It's bitter or not, you don't have to taste it to know. After saying that, he removed my hand, bent over and kissed me, as if stealing honey. I've tasted it. It's sweet. Of course, the college entrance examination is also very, very important for us, and it is absolutely impossible to delay studying in order to fall in love. I studied with him, racing against time to brush up on the questions, just so that I could get the score to enter Peking University after graduation. Once, I don't know which boy secretly stuffed a note with contact information in my book, and I didn't find it, but Joyce Bob found out. Almost didn't off Joyce Bob. If you let me know who put it. Lao Tzu broke his hand. When the last subject of the college entrance examination is completed, the school building was boiling like never before, and the pages and test papers were flying all over the sky. Sister Sigrid, we're all betting on who you or Joyce Bob will be the provincial champion this year. What do you think of it? I don't think much of it. It doesn't matter who it is. No, don't you like to fight with him the most? That was before, and now I don't want to fight. Isn't it good to be mutually beneficial? Say Cao Cao. Cao Cao will arrive. Sigrid May. Joyce Bob called my name at the door of my classroom, and my classmates stopped their movements and looked at me with curious gossip. This time, Joyce Bob and I don't have to hide anymore. I generously ran over and hugged him. The classmates in the class exploded in an instant, and some boys and girls who usually had a good relationship with me started to laugh. Good guys. When did you secretly chant song? Sister Sigrid is so unkind. She doesn't tell us when she falls in love. Actually, I have been snorting the two of them for a long time, but I didn't expect them to really be together, and I have no regrets in my life. On the other side, the dean of students came up the stairs from the other side. He smiled. How are you feeling? Joyce Bob, let's play normally. Me too. That's good. That's good. But you too. Don't be specific to the answer after the exam. Just relax and relax. You know, I didn't come to her for the right answer, said Joyce Bob. Teacher, didn't you wonder who my early crush was? Now Ken told the teacher. I laughed. That's me. The dean was petrified to the ground in an instant. The look seemed to accuse, and the world in which he was alone in injury was achieved. But after all, he was the director, and he had seen strong winds and waves, so he quickly adjusted his expression and said with a smile, yes, you too. You deserve to be the students I brought with you, and you kept me in the dark. I said, Teacher, don't be angry. We're afraid you'll be too worried if you find out. The dean lowered his voice. In the future, When you two get married, remember to ask the teacher to eat candy, otherwise the teacher will be in a hurry with you. Don't you hear? On the day of the graduation ceremony, Joyce Bob took the stage to speak as an outstanding graduate, and his slender and upright figure was projected on the big screen. The gymnasium was full, gathered with graduates, and the dense crowd of students wearing school uniforms was like a picture of youth spread out. All are wonderful and bright. On the stage, he looks eye-catching, with a white shirt and straight trousers, and his youthful spirit can't be hidden. The speed of speech is not slow, and the voice is lazy and clear. He's my teenager. After he finished speaking, the audience didn't know who was leading the way. They even called my name en masse. Sigrid May. Sigrid May. Damn, these guys have a great ability to make a noise. Joyce Bob was still very embarrassed when he heard my name, and when he heard my name, he lowered his head and smiled, a little shy and helpless. Okay, in that case, I'll take a little time for you to talk about your own business. A teacher on the side of the stage wanted to go up to stop him, but was stopped by the old principal, who shook his head and motioned for the teacher to leave it alone. Joyce Bob's gaze crossed to my position. At this moment, my circled face was suddenly projected on the big screen. He looked serious, and his eyes were like stars. Sigrid May, I really like you. Voices. That moment is forever frozen in my heart, like a romance that can never be replaced by summer. 26. Postscript. Years later, Sigrid May learns that her sister has never had a crush on Joyce Bob at all. As early as the winter vacation before their swap, my sister and Jackson secretly got into a relationship, and Jackson and Joyce Bob know each other very well, grew up together, and as Joyce Bob's good buddy, Jackson knows that Joyce Bob has a crush on Sigrid May. Joyce Bob has dozens of photos of her back stored on her phone, and she often looks at them like babies. When Sigrid May spoke as a student representative in her freshman year of high school, Joyce Bob fell in love with her, helplessly. Sigrid May saw him as a fierce rival. This left Joyce Bob distressed. Jackson couldn't take it anymore, and decided to join his girlfriend to help him. Teresa May actually secretly CPP, although every time his sister would whisper in his ear that Joyce Bob was really crazy and how unhappy she was. She loved romance novels, and felt that these two people had an inextricable sense of fate. As soon as she heard that Joyce Bob had a crush on her sister, a perfect plan was born in her head. Later, there was a swap between the two. Of course, they didn't tell Joyce Bob about their plans. Joyce Bob could tell early on that Sigrid May wasn't actually her sister, but he didn't debunk her. Why debunk it? He's having fun. Anyway, if Sigrid May didn't admit it, patted her ass and left. He said he wouldn't let her go. Bad man. How did you have a crush on me and end up chasing you? What do you owe me here for the rest of my life? The end.